Hello and welcome to Find Your Voice, where we interview thought leaders from our community at Podcast Guesting Pro. I'm Cassandra Welford, and today I have the pleasure of being joined by Mercedas Taaffe Cooper. Merc is a registered psychologist, former world and European kickboxing champion, and the founder of Counterpunch, a boxing-based resilience program for adolescents. Merc combines clinical psychology, sports science, and combat sport coaching to help teens build emotional regulation, confidence, and connection through movement. Merc, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Cassie. It's a pleasure to be here.
We're so looking forward to finding out more about you and your expertise. And I would love to start about touching on your own story, which moves from elite kickboxing and world titles into psychology, youth work, and then creating Counterpunch. Did you first realise that combat sport could be much more than physical training?
I think I realised that as a participant, to be honest. I mean, martial arts has always sort of been more than just a physical sport. I grew up in the days of Bruce Lee and Kung Fu and all of those kind of shows that were on TV. So I first sort of got involved in martial arts and in traditional karate when I was around 17. And it was something that I really enjoyed. I think a lot of, not just the physical side of it, but the ritual side of it, doing the bows and the dojo and all of that respect that was being a part of martial arts was always something that I felt drawn to.
Amazing. And a lot of parents would never think to put their child into boxing or martial arts. What would you say to anyone that was a bit reluctant or they only saw it as combat sport and fighting?
Potentially because of professional boxing or whatever, but I think that the most humble and gentle sports people I've ever met have been in combat sport. Basically, I've never seen a boxing match where the two combatants don't actually give each other like a hug and a show of respect at the end of the competition. It's not really about fighting. I transitioned from martial arts to boxing for the simple reason that I couldn't kick to save my life. My hands were much better, and I just actually wanted to kind of transition into more free school kickboxing. I really wanted to do boxing, but around the time that I wanted to box, when boxing finally came in for females, unfortunately, I was too old to participate. But that was my coaching pathway, boxing. I found that for me personally, like watching boxing and watching the transition and the growth in young people, it's a uniquely powerful sport in terms of connecting and getting the best out of young people and seeing their growth. And when I kind of realized that and then sort of combined it a little bit with my experience as a psychologist, literally just adding those tools to accelerate the process, if you like, in a kind of a more structured way with a curriculum and resources, etc. It just seemed to be the full package. So the combination of the boxing, the psychology, and indeed the sports science element of it, because the movements of boxing have very powerful sort of neuro effect as well in terms of the coupling exercises and so forth that are involved. And when you combine all of those things, you basically have everything you need to teach resilience and to teach belonging and how kids can meet their power need and be challenged and all of that. I mean, obviously it was a journey. I first discovered the potential for it when I did my research thesis for my master's degree in Tasmania. I did a master's in clinical psychology and we had to do some research. As part of that, I introduced a physical component in the classroom, which was just standing up and doing kiais where you punch and breathe. And as it turned out, the feedback from a group of 5th and 6th year, so like 11, 12-year-old kids, was that was one of the most powerful elements of it. So we sort of evolved and it's since kind of gone from the classroom into a gym environment because kids respond much better when they're moving. Talk therapy, having been in private practice for quite a while, just doesn't work as well with adolescents, if at all, whereas moving does.
And when you speak about Counterpunch, you make it really important that it's not just for what might be classed as children at risk, but it's for all adolescents. Why is that distinction so important?
Well, the reason that I created Counterpunch was that I actually spent time working in clinical psychology. And when you work with kids that are at that higher end of the sort of therapeutic, like basically at higher end kids that are in having real issues and maybe crime and all the rest of it, they've got a lot of services that cater for that. My funding initially came from suicide prevention in the Northern Territory, which unfortunately was really, really high, on a par with actually Ireland as the two highest regions in the world at the time. And the kids that unfortunately are never in the mental health system or even the justice system, they're kids that teachers would say swing out of the back of the classroom, out of the chair, and they're not actually causing trouble, but they're not actually engaged either. And they slip through the cracks. So my experience, like, first of all, accessing kids early and just teaching them the sort of life skills that get them through that adolescent phase, actually stop it early enough before they're at a level where it becomes a diagnosis or a criminal type of thing. All kids are, inverted commas, at risk, if you take that as a description, because all kids have their own pathway through adolescence, and having something that I wanted to teach them the stuff that I wished I knew as a teenager, going through adolescence, to sort of save them the bother of having to learn it the hard way, and give them that sense of belonging and meet their power need, and give them, as one parent described it, providing them with almost an extra parent who can teach their kids something that they actually can't teach, because provide a safe environment with good peer role models. Adolescents will listen 100% more to other adolescents at that stage of development than they will to their parents or to adolescents or to adults or teachers. So yeah, it's very much an education model. It's not a model where you have to have a diagnosis. It's just regular kids who are struggling through the normal trials and tribulations of adolescence, really.
Right. And there's so much pressure, isn't there, nowadays? And to be able to have that additional support is invaluable.
Yeah, I mean, just to know that they're in a group, that even just realizing that all the stuff that's going on for them is not unique to them, that sense of isolation, that I'm the only one feels like this. Just having a peer mentor tell them about their journey and what it's been like for them. And they sort of go, oh, gosh, he's on the football team and he's 6'2" and he's a big lad, but yeah, he got bullied. I mean, are you kidding me? You know what I mean? It's like, it's just a real leveler for them all to see that, and they know it's a safe place, and they know that they can be themselves. Like, you know, when they go to school or even when they're in team sports, they feel like they have to present a certain persona that isn't always who they are at heart. Whereas in the counterpunch gym, they can just be themselves.
That's so important. I like what you said about the sense of belonging, and also just feeling like you're not alone. You're not the only one that's going through that.
Yeah, I mean, for adolescents, like, the two needs that are most driving behavior are the need to connect and belong, and the need to meet their power need, which is nothing to do with having power over, but that ability to have a purpose and a sense of intrinsic achievement where they're working towards something. So the actual syllabus and pathway towards fitness and the skills of boxing provide that within counterpunch. They don't have to want to box. Like, a lot of our participants are very good at other sports, and some don't involve in any sports, but they just have that avenue to go on if they want. Actually, just this week we have our Battle in the Hills event, which is basically their opportunity to jump in the ring for an exhibition or a bout. And they've worked towards it for, well over a year. It's their very smart goal, which is one of our first tools that we teach in the first phase of the program. So we have about 7 young people that are jumping in, some for the second or fourth time and some for the very first time.
That's fantastic. And many youth programs exist for quite a short period of time, whereas with yours, they're connected throughout high school. Like, what kind of impact does that have on the adolescents that are part of your program?
That was something that I was very insistent about. Like, when I initially got funding for the program, the NTG government gave me the opportunity, and I'm very grateful for that. But a lot of government programs, they go into country or they'll go there for a while and then they'll finish. Like, there's no continuity. They're just thinking, if you're lucky, a 4-year plan. Like, my intention was to give the kids a place where they could be and have a sense of belonging for as long as they need it and as long as they want it, which is why we sort of, join up with combat clubs as such, because with Counterpunch here in Mount Barker, we've set up a not-for-profit amateur boxing club called Adelaide Hills Boxing and Fitness Club. So the kids that complete Counterpunch, they can follow on a number of pathways. They can just complete Counterpunch and join the boxing club, follow a competitive pathway if that's what they'd like to do. Many of our lads that join the competitive pathway also follow the leadership pathway and become mentors. So the program is constantly feeding back into itself. So when a young person benefits from the program and graduates and competes, then they come back in and give their time back and mentor the next lot of kids that are coming through. So yes, we provide an avenue for kids from 9 to 19 if they want it. There's no upper limit, but most kids after high school will move on to do uni in a different location or become adults and get on with their lives. But most of our kids have been with us for quite a while. And when they come in, the plan is that there'll be a minimum of 2 years, and then some of our kids just don't want to leave, which is great. That's the whole point.
I love that. And you touched on it slightly, but I'd love to go a little bit deeper. Some of your young people, they go from a participant, then to a mentor, and then potentially to a facilitator. So what does that pathway do for their identity and their leadership skills?
Well, the program itself is broken down into sort of a connect, relate, communicate. So the communicate phase is all about developing their leadership potential, becoming young leaders. So the avenue, if you like, for the kids that come in at the start is to become a graduate, then to that's a level 1, then they can do level 2. Then they can become what we call a shadow mentor, where they get to shadow a mentor and learn how to be a mentor. Then they become a mentor and a senior mentor, and then ultimately they can become a junior facilitator and a facilitator. So my actual offsider in my Mount Barker location is what I call a counterpunch kid. Like, he's come through that pathway all the way through to now being a facilitator at 21.
That's incredible. And you touched on that example, but is there another example or a testimonial that you'd like to share about someone that came to you, like how they were feeling, and then a positive result that they've had on your program?
There's numerous ones on the website, like from parents and participants and indeed facilitators and health workers and so forth. But the one that comes to mind, because in me as a psychologist, like not all facilitators do, but as a psychologist, I've had some clients who've had a diagnosis of ASD, for example, which is absolutely no deterrent from doing counterpunch, because in my experience, kids with ASD just learn differently, and the medium that we use actually works really well for them. But we did have one client, James, who came to me at 10 and a half, and I'm sure he'd admit himself he couldn't put 2 punches together. He had a few meltdowns in the early days, and his dad had to be there. And roll forward 8 years later, he has not been on NDIS for at least 3 years now. He's like, I don't need that anymore. So he doesn't have funding. He's just a regular member of society who's very high functioning, drives his own car. He's first year uni studying filming and videography. He's actually one of our most experienced boxers in the club. And literally, he said all he ever needed was counterpunch. He's got the environment. He's got his friends within the program. He likes to keep to himself, maybe. Not a huge friendship group, but very happy and very content with what he has from counterpunch. And his mum and dad are very proud of him, as well as they should be. He's actually one of our leaders in that you never have to check his weight for a tournament. You never have to pull him in for not doing the work and the training. And he's a great example to all the other lads coming through.
That's amazing. You're literally giving them skill for life, aren't you?
Well, yes, absolutely. I mean, it's not like they don't have the skills. It's more like just evolving and bringing out and just teaching them those tools early on so that they can start applying them earlier. Having worked as a psychologist in private practice with adults can be very ingrained in their victimhood, if you like. They're very much to me in a lot of cases, whereas the kids are very open to the progression from to me to by me, even through me, as Peter Sage talks about. I guess the biggest sort of wisdom that kids have is imagination. Once you have imagination, you can create anything. And the whole idea of me as a psychologist getting away with creating counterpunch is literally, number one, to have a moving medium, to be able to have peer groups and so forth. But number two, like traditional psychology, the medical model focuses on fixing people. Whereas for me, if you focus on what needs to be fixed, then that's what the kids focus on. Whereas for me, I think if we focus on what they're capable of and what they can create and just really focus on that, that's all you need to, as I call, lock in their GPS onto the stuff that their brain will continue to seek out, rather than focusing on the negative stuff that their brain will also seek out if that's what they set the GPS on,
Yeah, that's incredibly powerful. And you're based in Australia, but would you like to share about how you can work with clients around the world and how people can get involved with Counterpunch if this is something that is interesting to them?
Absolutely. We're really in a position now. We've trialed and tested the curriculum for 10 years. We've replicated it with probably a half a dozen facilitators at other gyms who are having equally good outcomes with their programs. And my most experienced facilitator, Damien's been running the program now for 5 years at his gym. And we have another facilitator we have a few around. We also have an NDIS provider who's actually got facilitators facilitating Counterpunch. And we have a number of other tenders currently. My mission is to get it to every kid everywhere in every corner of the world that can utilize this program. I want to get it to them. And the biggest barrier was that up until now, the training had been in person for facilitators as well as for the kids. It will always be in person for the kids because obviously the connection and that group, that in-person stuff is what makes it work. But now we've actually created online Counterpunch 2.0 for facilitators. So we've got 7 modules, actually 8 if you include module 0, which is the introduction. And we now have capacity for facilitators to do the facilitator training online with support through Zoom, etc. So that just means that now there's no barrier to us scaling right around the world because as far as I'm concerned, every kid in every corner needs this. And it's one of my most common phrases, it's not rocket science. It's just I'm not teaching anything new that hasn't been out there before, but what we teach is how we combine it in a unique way to get the unique outcomes that we've tried and tested now for over 10 years. And we know what works. We can speak to the journey from kids that have actually been through the journey and are still here and talking about the outcomes. So it's a no-brainer. We'd love to get entrepreneurs that work with young people. We want to get agencies and so forth that work with young people and even corporate leadership and so forth, because it's a model, it's a system that works with every age group. But my particular passion is to get it through to adolescents because obviously the earlier you get there, the better. I see Counterpunch as being the next sort of movement in youth development. It's the World Cup of youth development. As far as that's the mission, that's where I see it.
I love that and very, very apt. You mentioned about getting Counterpunch out into as many countries as possible, and you're now using podcasts as one of those methods to reach other people. What has inspired you to speak on podcasts to reach even more people?
My preference over a long period has been to be the one behind the camera and doing the interviews. But what I've realized over the years is that if I'm going to preach about transitioning from by me to by me to through me, then for me, I need to be in the through me level. And in order to do that, I've got to be prepared to be seen and to put this out there. So I feel like a call to do that now because somebody's got to put it out there. I've already got Jalen at 21 lined up to take it over, and he's got a face much more suitable for TV than me, but having developed it, I feel like it's my legacy and my responsibility, and it's just a mission. It's something I just need to do, and whatever it takes for me to do that, if that's been on podcasts, if that's been whatever sort of publicity I need to create in order to make it happen, the kids need it, and that's the priority, really. Yeah.
Thank you.
In order for kids to get it, we need people who are passionate about helping young people who are willing to think of this as an entrepreneurial enterprise where you can actually make a living doing it, because for me, that's what makes it long-term and self-sufficient. So we're putting a call out for facilitators that would love something now that actually works, not one of those kind of programs that gives information or talk therapy. This is an experiential program which creates the environment and the experience that changes identity. It's not talk therapy.
And you touched earlier about who might be suitable to be a facilitator, certain businesses. Would you like to just recap before we close, who could be a suitable facilitator or that type of business?
Anybody. For me, I think what jumps out at me is sporting organisations like soccer, AFL, Gaelic football, because I'm obviously Irish, but if we can get Counterpunch into junior development programs, we can teach this because the physical medium doesn't have to be boxing. Boxing is just the coordination, the coupling, the sort of basic complex motor skills that boxing involves that fit in with basketball or every other sport. So sporting organizations out there that see if we teach these skills young enough, we can assist in performance, but we can also give kids the life skills to progress through to senior level and cope with the stresses and all the rest of it. We're obviously all sort of youth groups, NDIS agencies, individual combat gym owners, organizations like WACO, president of whom I know well, Roy Baker, the World Association of Kickboxing Organizations, has a huge youth membership. Those are the sort of organizations and agencies that we want to access and show the benefit that can be gained from introducing Counterpunch. It's fully systemized. It's just a license program. It has all the learning management systems are online. Everything can be done through Zoom. It's just that the facilitators themselves teach the program then in person with the kids.
Thank you. And if anyone's listening to this and they're interested, how can they connect with you?
They can connect with me through our website's probably the first point of call I would point out, which is counterpunch.com.au. Our Facebook page, which is Counterpunch Australia. I'm on LinkedIn, Mercedas Taaffe Cooper. We're also on Instagram, Counterpunch Live, and on TikTok, and also on YouTube. So we're really putting the word out now. We're embracing all of the social media channels and whatever we need, including this podcast, to get the word out.
Amazing. Well, we're really looking forward to continuing working with you and supporting you on your mission to reach as many people as possible. So thank you for sharing with us today, and we just want to wish you the best for your continued success.
Thank you very much, Cassie. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for listening.